I mean, I really fell in love with the sound, you know, which kind of like went on. I mean, it was as much Lizzie's voice as Robin's production. The two were just kind of like seamless. And I was always really intrigued as to like they made it sound so effortless. That's what attracted me the most. It was kind of the first time I'd heard this, you know, I mean, it's described in various ways. I mean, it's ethereal and like all the other adjectives, but it was really sensuous. It kind of drew you in and was effortless, and you just found yourself just immersed in this sound. And I played the Cocteaus like relentlessly. I mean, they were, you know, when you get to a period and you just play the same albums over and over again. I mean, I could probably play most of Treasure, and I've never sat down and learned it, but I know it so well. In fact, that was the album I played as I was getting ready for my wedding. I played to myself as I was getting dressed on my wedding day, because it's the most romantic sound I'd ever heard. At the time, it's hard actually to convey how much anger they caused. It was quite extraordinary, really. You kind of thought, God, I thought people had moved past this. The media went crazy with the Mary Jane. They were like thinking like it was the end of the world, you know, thinking like. But they played up to it. They did a really good job. I mean, they had a year where it was just relentless. Loveless, the moment I heard it, I think I listened to it 3 times in a row. I just stopped everything, and I've done that to a handful of albums in my life. I was just completely and utterly blown away by it. It was one of those records that you'd waited so long, you'd gone past the point of even thinking like, it can't possibly be anywhere near as good as everyone thinks it's going to be, because it's taken 15 times longer than it should have done. And then it went on even longer, and you thought, it doesn't really matter, I'm not even fussed about hearing it. And yet, the first time I heard it, I thought, this is so much better than I ever thought it was going to be. It was just like one of those moments you think, I wish that came around at least once a year, not like once a decade. And there's always been, and it will always be my top 10 albums of everything I've ever heard in 40 plus, almost 50 years now. It's that big to me. Ryder were a fantastic band, actually. I mean, probably of all of them, around for that short period from like sort of 90, 91, 92, 93, they were my favourite band. I mean, one of my favourite bands of all time. Live, they were absolutely brilliant. It's really, really awful, because if they had the 4 of them pulling in the same direction, they would have gone on to conquer the world, I think, because they had such great songs. I mean, instantly memorable songs like Vapor Trail. I mean, it's one of the best kind of 15-second intros of all time. The sadness is that when the real thing doesn't ever kind of break out of that, the constructs of it, of the scene, that you kind of think, I wish, you know, in that case, that the British public would embrace these bands. But for a brief period, when it was a new thing as ever in those days, the music press in particular got behind it, and to a certain degree that the tabloid press, and kind of pushed certain people, and then they tired of it. Culturally, it was one of the most successful movements of the last 40 years. I mean, it had a huge, and still has, a huge impact on what, if you are in love with music, what people do now, they will refer back to groups of this era. So, I mean, in a more fundamental way, they were hugely successful. If they'd all just gone after the #1 slot, there wouldn't have been a movement, and there wouldn't have been the music to talk about. You can't remember who was #1 when Loveless came out, but you can remember when Loveless came out. So that's the difference. I mean, success is measured, for me, probably in a different way.